Bendiciones and good morning, everybody. So today we're going to start our walkthrough of Allan Kardec's The Book of Spirits, or the Spirits book. Okay, and today I'm going to keep the video a little short. We're looking about maybe 10-15 minutes or so. So you can get a little bit of taste of how we're going to walk through it, and we're going to do this slowly. There is no rush for this. Spiritism and trying to understand the concepts of Spiritism, especially given to us by Allan Kardec, it can be difficult if not taken in bite-sized pieces or slowly. So I'm going to help break this down for you the way I ended up having to break it down for myself, okay? So we're going to start by using our textbook. There's a couple of different forms of this. This one is the Spiritist book. This here is by the United States Spiritist Federation. There's a couple of different versions out there. Any of them will work. But we're going to work our way very, very calmly from the very beginning to the very end. And then when we're done with all of this, we'll move through the Medium's book. Okay, you guys? So we're going to start by understanding what Spiritism is and what being a spiritualist is and what that consists of, okay? Kind of clear up who is a spiritist and what is a soul, along with the concept of God within Spiritism, okay? And I have my notes here, so I'm going to try to walk through it slowly. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments, or feel free to contact me on our page at Elo Botanica on Facebook, or Cassandra at elobotanica.com, okay? So we're going to start very clearly. Materialism versus spiritualism, and who is a spiritualist, okay? So we're going to walk through the different views and the different principles of how a soul is seen, so we can define what is materialistic and what classifies you as a spiritualist or spiritualism, okay? All right, so we're going to start with the concept of materialism. And the principle of organic life with no existence of its own and ends with the life of a body is effect, not a cause. Meaning, this here is the soul. It is a physical mass, it is a soul, it is everything. When this dies, there is absolutely nothing afterwards. There's nothing that sparks the life here outside of what is here. You'll find a lot of atheists that will talk about how they believe that there is nothing after death, it's just darkness and there is nothing. That is along the lines of materialism, okay? So next you have the concept of universal intelligence, one soul for the entire universe, meaning that there is a universal concept of a soul floating out here in the ether, right? And one little part of that is taken and put into here, and we are animated by such. So basically, you know, when the body dies, it retains the soul part, but it goes back up to the whole of a universal concept. There's no individuality here, meaning that you do not retain any individualness before nor after this incarnation, okay? That is pantheism. So then we get to the definition of Spiritism, and it is soul as an individual moral being, okay? Completely distinct and free from matter, preserved identity after death, and the soul is a cause, not the effect, meaning that we are a intellectual individual. Our soul sparks life into this body and then continues in its own individual identity afterwards. So this sparks the concept of reincarnation, meaning like how one soul can come back in a body time after time in different bodies because it is individual to the whole. And that is Spiritism. This is where the concepts of religion has come from, right? Religion as the soul is a moral, understanding, intellectual, and it has its own identity. This is multicultural. This is in every indigenous tradition. You will hardly ever find pantheism being the spark of religion, right? Religion. Not spiritualism or a spirituality, but religion itself. So that, for us, defines materialism, pantheism, and spiritualism. Or Spiritism. Being a spiritist. Being a spiritist or spiritualist is believing that your soul is an individual identity with a moral compass, meaning we make decisions, and those decisions and this identity is held after this vessel dies and continues to move on. And we're going to talk about where that moves and how it goes, okay? So, how do I, best place to put this? I don't think that that is necessary going to leave open debate, but what we might go into next will, and we're going to kind of be careful about this God concept, because in Allan Kardec's Spiritism, there is one divine being, it is a God, and that's where everything comes from. In our Yoruban concepts, it differs a little, meaning there's a divine source as neither he nor she and is more removed. It's kind of the same thing, a little different. So we're going to go over a little bit more terminology when it comes to Spiritism. And this is just an opening. So you kind of understand the terminology as of next video and us moving forward. So it just makes it a little bit more clear to you. Okay, so not debating these three concepts, but only disappointed in the linguistic barrier where the word soul is being moved into three separate clear-cut ideas. So my biggest issue when I was going through this decade ago was, oh gosh, it's been longer than that. That's crazy. So my situation with this is agreeing with the Spiritist form of, it is disappointing that we only really have one word for three very separate, very distinct concepts, right? Soul or spirit. So not debating that any of those are correct, but we are only going to focus on that of Spiritism here. So here's a couple of different words for you. The first one is vital principle. It defines material, organic, and organic life, meaning anything that's this, the rocks, the plants, all of that wonderful stuff. Anything that is material and organic life. It's common to all living things regardless of source. Life can exist when a being does not have the ability to think. Meaning that the vital principle, that spark of life that allows plants to exist and trees to grow and flowers to bloom and crystals to do their beautiful chemical process, but there is a vital force that moves through everything, right? It's vital principle. We also have a word for these fluids, or atomized electric fluid, and its effect can be compared to how inert bodies absorb light. So when we're using, like, say, water on the Mesa Blanca, or water in a Spiritist center, the water that is within us, the fluids that move within the air between us and everything else, is called vital fluid or magnetic fluid. So, or nervous fluid. So basically the water or the particles that are magnetized or have energy everywhere, all the places, right? Granted, they all have different variations of vibrations and such, but you know, they're all vibrating. So all organic beings possess these forces that produce the phenomena of life, meaning both the vital principle and the vital fluids are in every single living thing, in all spirit, in the air, all over the place. So humans have this superiority in a way over all the others due to our moral and intellectual capacity and the presence of a spiritual soul, meaning in Spiritism, we believe that we have this extraordinary ability to be able to think and to have this moral decision, what is right, what is wrong, and to be able to have judgment over this. And this makes us just outrageous. In the book in my book, a direct quote is, in this case, the vital soul would belong to all organic things, plants, animals, and humans. The intellectual soul would specifically belong to animals and humans, and the spiritual soul would belong to humankind alone. So the animal soul, like why people say animals do have souls, yes, that is true. There is a concept that animals can also reincarnate, which is fabulous, right? But it's the difference between an animalistic soul and a spiritual soul that only humankind can possess due to our intellectual nature or the range of our psychology, right? So which is pretty awesome. Okie dokie. I'm gonna move forward here just a little bit to see if I can clarify any other little things before we really try to dive into this book. So here are some concepts about God. Just going into it just basically, right? The critical points of Spiritism is what it's called. The spirits have communicated to us this in order so we may easily concern or consider certain objections. Okay. So, according to Kardec, all right, here are 6 principles. And the last 4 are what I consider to be most important to me. You can choose, right? First is, God is eternal, absolute, immaterial, unique, all-powerful, supremely good and just. So, okay, concept 1. And concept 2, God has created the universe, which comprises of all things, animate and inanimate, material and immaterial. Makes sense, right? In Spiritism, it makes sense. So here's where I get into the things that really matter to me, because I have my own debates on 1 and 2, but that's just me. And that's the best thing about Spiritism is you can question, and you're supposed to question. It's important. Concept 3 is material beings make up the visible and physical world. Immaterial beings make up the invisible or spiritual world. And in other words, the spirit world. So basically, the things that we can see are material, and things we can't are immaterial. Easy, right? 4, the spiritual world is normal, original, and eternal, pre-existent and surviving to anything else. Meaning, the immaterial, the things we can't see, the spiritual world, that was before us now, and it will be after us. It's always there. This goes into a lot of different concepts about multi-universes and a bunch of different things, but for us, it's just universal. We've always been here, and we'll always be here in some form or another. And here doesn't mean exactly this earth, but here means in existence in general. So the next one is, the physical world is only secondary. It could cease to exist or never have existed, and this would have no effect on the essence of the spiritual world, which even in my religion, in Lukumi, is absolutely true. Meaning that, like, whether we are here or not, it's inconsequential to the spiritual world. Because as we'll move into, there's varying levels in different places we could go. So basically, if this world ceases to exist, we don't cease to exist. We continue existing, right? So the last one is, spirits temporarily don a material envelope, which is destroyed upon death, and their freedom is restored. Simple. Basically, we're put into here to do our jobs, and then when this envelope dies, we move on, do another job. We're still there, right? So we're going to do just a little bit more here, and then I'm going to let you go. I just want to make sure that we got base concepts down, so moving forward, it's a little bit easier. Because I'll be honest with you, this is just like part of chapter 1 of the Spiritist book. It's just understanding terminology and what exactly it is that defines us as Spiritists, right? So the human is made of 3 things. The body, similar to animals and animated by a vital principle. The vital principle we talked to that defines matter, organic material, all things, right? So 2, the soul or immaterial being, a spirit incarnated in the body. So we have our spiritual soul and our vital principle, right? And 3, the link or secondary envelope that is liaison between the matter and the spirit. Meaning, some people call it aura, some people call it your energetic field, some people call it the astral body, right? But it is the space between us, and it radiates just a little bit that kind of links us and our soul together. So I'm going to say it like this. It's called perispirit. It's a semi-material envelope connecting the body and the spirit. So here's where it makes sense if I say it this way. It is the body. I know I can feel you guys getting all excited too. I don't know why this excites them, but this is the body that you see when you see apparitions. When things appear that are not there, when spirit chooses to be seen, and it is to be seen as a person, it is this astral body, this perispirit, that it chooses to allow to be seen. Okay? So, apparitions, astral body. That's just kind of the way we go about it. People, therefore, have 2 natures. their body being given to them in the physical or animal nature, which is 1, or which they possess the instincts in their soul that gives them a spiritual nature, which is 2. It makes us super special, right? Also, Allan Kardec states that a spirit is not an abstract, undefined being conjured up by our imaginations. It is a real, distinct being that, in some cases, can be seen, heard, and touched. So this is where we go into the things that people connect with Spiritism. You know, the table tapping, the apparitions, the touching, the spiritual fluid coming out of the mouth and nose. So much of that is complete crap, and so much of that is absolutely true. And the best part about this is why we have to go through this first, is so as we move forward in spirit starts talking about its spiritual fluid, starts talking about its apparition nature, its spiritual body, then you can understand what this means, okay? So it's amazing stuff. It's absolutely beautiful. We're going to go into incarnations and spirits and betterment of spirits and the degrees of spirit in the next video. I just wanted to get the definite principles, the absolute understandings of Spiritism. They can vary outside of that in so many ways. In a Spiritismo, in the Catholic way, in the Latin way, you'll find a lot of different variations when you're going into it from like an Afrocentric perspective. They still use the Spiritismo, but there is definitely some distinct differences in some of the beliefs. Some of these, though, are so absolutely universal that we just have to state them from the beginning. And one of the quotes that I like at the end of this little narrative is, this betterment of spirit takes place through incarnations, meaning our spiritual body can better itself as we move forward and as we move along, which is imposed on some as atonement and a mission. Material life is a trial that must be experienced many times until absolute perfection has been attained. Meaning this spiritual being of ours, this soul that we have defined here, this spiritual nature of us. You know, this is a world of atonement, basically, that they're saying that we live in. This is our mission. These are our jobs. And we have to come back over and over again to this specific space. That's why it's here, within many different bodies, to obtain this perfection, to be able to move on. We do this for evolution, for elevation. That's how we elevate other souls. We give light, but we'll go into all of that. What I wanted to give you was the definitions and some definitions of what is Spiritism. What does it mean to be a Spiritist? Basically, who is a Spiritist and what is the soul? Sometimes the concepts of understanding exactly how we're put together, what these apparitions are, what an astral body is versus the infinite soul, all of this. There's just so many questions, but it doesn't need to be that dramatic. It's actually very simple concepts. So in the Spiritist book, this is where we're going to start with some narratives. And then tomorrow we're going to go into varying degrees of spirits and how they get from one point to another. Okay?